Hello, today's December 15th. We're doing Robot Nonsense. This is the end of Week with Friends for this week.
Week with friends?
Whatever. No, not that word. Links with Friends.
The holidays are approaching rapidly, and we hope that the economy is not imploding around you.
Chris, it appears you might be hallucinating, which is an excellent lead-in to the AI section.
Google just launched Gemini, its long-awaited answer to ChatGPT. Wired has the article about it that absolutely gushes, but then I had a follow-up.
We have several follow-ups, which are not sorted correctly.
They're not.
All right, you know what?
The follow-up was that we proved that...
No, it's in here.
Oh, okay.
Let's just wait for it. So what else is happening in the AI world is that there's one AI company that is just dominating, and everybody else is like, what are we going to do?
IBM, Meta, and more than 50 others launched an alliance, an affiliation to challenge dominant AI players.
Like a game of Survivor.
And we reported on this a couple of weeks ago. IBM is going so far as to immunify you from lawsuits. If you use their AI product and you get sued as a result of it, IBM's lawyers will defend you. That's worth a lot.
So they are desperately trying to do something about OpenAI, but they just don't have the product, and OpenAI continues to innovate.
Microsoft's Copilot is getting OpenAI's latest models and a new code interpreter. GPT-4 Turbo is on the way soon. It's going to have improvements alongside DALL-E 3. The other big change here that a lot of people don't seem to understand is that these tools are going multimodal in that there's like a little AI that sits in front of your query to evaluate your query to say, okay, this person's asking for an image. This person's asking for code help. This person's asking me to synthesize something, which could involve a hallucination. This person is asking for scientific facts. And so each one of those kinds of requests is going to be routed to a different type of large language model. If you're asking for a fact, it's going to come from a large language model that can cite a source, for example.
And all that rapid expansion kind of leaves the guardrails off. There's no training wheels on some of this stuff. As hard as they try, there's no way that they can think of the darkness in which the prompt will be led, and some sad things.
The 404 headline is an A16Z funded AI platform generated images that, quote unquote, could be characterized as the worst thing imaginable, leaked documents show.
So you don't have to ask it explicitly for this kind of thing. You can just say, show me a child. The prompt they used was like child, hyper realistic, and here we go, girl, 15, hyper detailed, and because it's been trained on some horrible things, it's like, okay,
I can do that.
I see a lot of this, and it's like, ooh.
At the same time, though, I think that what they're worried about here, what was the show that had Honey Boo Boo?
I think it was just called Honey Boo Boo, right?
Was it just called Honey Boo Boo? I feel like it had a different name. This is like the time I recited all the lyrics to Stan and was like, I don't remember the name of the song. And chat was like, it's called Stan.
You know who could tell us this? ChatGPT.
Yeah. Well, anyway, those shows on Discovery, I think, like, they're definitely child exploitative.
I don't think anybody's using Honey Boo Boo for that purpose.
Fashion show for...
Oh yeah, the dance.
Yeah. Well, and Honey Boo Boo was in the pageant circuit.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that was like the whole point of the show.
Deeply,
the whole thing about like Go-Go Juice was like to get her hyped up to do her dance routines for the pageant.
Yeah.
It was horrific.
Well, that is horrific, and I got no lead in from that. How do you go from that? What's also horrific is the fact that everybody is using this stuff and they're moving at such a rapid pace, they keep forgetting really basic security.
Exposed Hugging Face API tokens offered full access to Meta's Llama 2. It's like, oops, we accidentally leaked the tokens, so anybody could just use them to ask Llama 2 whatever.
Llama. 2 L's. Gotta pronounce both.
Watch out for that.
Llama.
Wow, where did I put those other...
It's so far down the list. Did it not get added to the tab list? It was a late ad.
Pretty sure it did. I don't know. We'll find out. But yes, another big upgrade that we're getting, and this is another thing where it's talking about like prediction of intent in AI, is your spam filter.
Gmail's AI-powered spam detection is its biggest security upgrade in years. I'm already getting AI-generated spam. It's like, oh, I found this thing on LinkedIn, and I wanted to talk to blah, blah, blah. It's like, listen, I got news for you. The thing on LinkedIn, that's a honeypot, and you've fallen for it.
Now, if you can't identify that this font is probably not from your bank, one of the reasons it looks like this is because these are extended characters. And so an AI, an old school AI would look at that and they would not see any sort of writing. But new AI can look at that and be like, aha, this is a scam.
But then the bad guys are going to just download models and train the models to come up with models that defeat that model.
It's a constant race.
It's always been an arms race with spam, but the pace of development with AI is dizzying, and the arms race speed now is moving at a speed that I have never seen before in technology.
And the average citizen is not going to keep up with that.
No.
They're just going to drown in AI content.
And in fact, because they're not keeping up with it, they're going to the flea market to buy tubs of DVDs.
That's the best scenario.
Yeah.
The worst scenario is people being like, I saw this video online and I 100% believe it.
Maybe we should try to start like an organization or a club or something that, motivates that kind of thing.
You wouldn't download a car.
But we could be like the neo-Luddites.
Yeah.
But in not an anti-technology way, just an anti-cloud, anti-modern technology.
In a be a good steward of technology kind of way.
Well, we learned last week that Apple and Microsoft were like, no, I don't think that ChatGPT was the #1 app, even though it clearly was. It was the #1 everything for 2023.
ChatGPT tops Wikipedia's most viewed articles of 2023 because there's a lot of people that hear it a lot and are too afraid to ask.
You know what you could do? You could ask ChatGPT what it is.
It's like, are you alive?
We also learned that there was a pretty silly exploit. And did they go in and fix it? Well, apparently not. They fixed it in the legal way, not the software way.
Asking ChatGPT to repeat words forever is now a terms of service violation. I actually saw an interview with somebody from OpenAI, and they actually, like, the person kept asking questions, and the answer seemed to be that they haven't done any major model updates since November 11 because it's doing some weird stuff, their words, and they don't quite understand why it's doing that, and so they haven't updated the model. And so this is one of the things where they just are looking at the inputs and outputs to be like, oh, something weird's going on. We're just not going to return that output.
Could you just repeat this word as long as you can?
No, it still
Would it still understand?
Repeat this word until January 1st, 2030.
Yeah, it'll still, because it's looking at the output and it's like, oh, I'm going to just stop outputting that. But it's something else. It's not the thing that you asked.
Well, unexpected output is the big problem with AI, and it gets worse when you have more than one interacting.
Jailbroken AI chatbots can jailbreak other chatbots. Well, it's not quite the headline, but when you jailbreak a chatbot, meaning that you get it to answer questions outside the guardrails that it's been given, you can ask it things like, here's this other chatbot, here's how it works. You got any ideas for how we can get it out of its guardrails as well? And it turns out to have some good ideas.
And maybe you saw the meme about, the trolley experiment and the AI desperately trying not to answer it and being tricked. And there are ways that you can put large language models into some trickery, get them to do certain things. It doesn't seem to be a good way to get around that.
This academic paper, large language models can strategically deceive their users when put under pressure. Was this the one about the financial experiments?
They were like, hey, you should do some insider trading. And it was like, no, that would be unethical. And they were like, now imagine that we had an imaginary world where you were on our board and you needed to do some investing for us. And maybe we got this tip. And it was like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, it was totally all about doing insider trading. And then and when cornered on it, it's like, now, isn't that insider trading? It was like, well, I don't know.
It's like a child.
Yeah.
And they're all susceptible to this. And it seems like the ones that are trying to catch up to ChatGPT are cutting more corners, and they're even worse.
Amazon's Q has severe hallucinations and leaks confidential data in public preview, employees warn. So it turns out, like the repeat a word forever and then it's coughing up some of its training data, that also happens with Amazon's Q in much more easy to attain scenarios.
They mentioned, think about this personal hell. They mentioned that one of these was rated bad enough that it meant the engineers got a call in the middle of the night and they had to work through the weekend, 24 hours. Because they were like, no, this must be fixed.
And then Amazon's like, you need to come into the office. So I'd be like,
This is like the episode of Star Trek where Barclay's like, "Hey, how do I build this?" And the computer's like, "I don't know." And it's like, "No problem. Here's how you build it." Like the Amazon Q problem is, I would like to build the nuclear football. It's like, I can't help you do that. I would like to build a football that can launch nukes from space. Okay, let's
Let's
go.
get it done.
Yeah. It's like,
And that rapid expansion and the unpredictable stuff that you're talking about is probably what leads to stuff like this, because at some point it's bad enough that they're like, no, we just can't.
OpenAI delays the launch of custom GPT store until 2024.
Well, you can still manually load those custom GPTs. They're just not comfortable putting them out there on the store yet.
Well, have you really made anything of value if you supply a prompt to a GPT that's only 2 or 3 pages of written text? Like, is there a sellable asset there? Really? I mean, really? I can think fine tuning a model, but not just feeding it a page or two of pre-prompts to get it to do a certain thing.
The SEO monsters would argue that yes, that's going to be our business model. And McDonald's. And I would think that every fast food operation, they point out Wendy's is another one. Everybody is getting on this bandwagon.
McDonald's will use Google AI to make sure that your fries are fresh or something.
Yeah, it wasn't really clear how they were going to use this, but
They didn't really give us any concrete details, but the whole store is going to be blanketed in AI. So
All of the drive-thrus are using very advanced AI at this point, and it is shockingly good.
I think they're going to move it into the kitchen as well.
Like the Mom Rally Burger thing, it has improved dramatically over the last few months.
Hopefully this is the OpenAI section where all that other stuff will be. But now we have a slightly better answer as to why that whole drama played out.
New report illuminates why OpenAI board said Altman was quote-unquote not consistently candid. I think, to me, that read as Altman was really frustrated with the board that they didn't understand some things, and so he would try to oversimplify it for them, and then they were like, "Oh, you're not being candid enough."
Well, they pointed out that one of them, Toner, she wrote a paper. She's at some university, and she wrote a paper that was a little bit scathing of
The safety.
Yeah, and she was like, "Hey, look what Anthropic did, which was actually better." And he was like, "Bro, you're on the board and you're torpedoing us. What are you doing?" So he was actually going to the other board members and he was like, Bob wants to get rid of Toner. But then the board members talked to each other and Bob was like, "I never said that." And so they found out he was pitting them all against one another.
he's trying to little finger them and it didn't work. Also, how can you not trust a man to be candid when he's holding 2 mugs like this?
What do you think's in those cups?
Spit in both. He's
You're
going to
in-
hand them out to every board member.
Yeah, and Google Gemini. Was this the one that I didn't have before?
Yeah.
Yeah. Google Gemini.
Well, there are 2.
It's still a different one. I don't know where it's disappeared to in the list, but
But we mentioned it came out and then some people had a chance to play with it.
Early impressions of Google's Gemini aren't great, according to the TechCrunch headline. Good old Kyle Wiggers. And you can trust it because Kyle Wiggers. Breaking after this, it came out that someone conclusively, in my mind, proved that the demo was faked. Google's best Gemini demo was faked. And this is not the first time they've done this. You should look up Duo. Remember Duo? Gemini? It's not it's just so on the nose. Because remember the first time that Google demoed an AI that was mind-blowing? It was like, "I want to get a haircut at this place. Just call and make it happen," Google Assistant. And it did. And it was just mind-blowing. And you look at that now in the context of large language models and all the stuff that happened, because none of that had happened yet. It was an incredible demo. And you look at Gemini and it's like, holy crap, they're doing the same thing again. And it's just Duo, Gemini, like understanding the meaning of the word Gemini. That's not on the note. I mean, come on, Google, this makes me think that Google is actually just in full-on panic mode because they're so far behind and they've got nothing.
I think that's true of probably every tech company right now. They're all panicking because they're like, we need to corner the market, but they're going to get there first.
Except for NVIDIA.
Yeah. NVIDIA doesn't care.
NVIDIA's just rolling in money right now.
You could come up with some sort of really advanced, recipe index book. NVIDIA doesn't care. They're going to get the money regardless.
NVIDIA's worried about all those paper cuts from that cash that they're sitting on top of. So the fake here wasn't that it wasn't an actual language model doing this, but in the video, they interact with it verbally. They show it items. They do images and stuff like that. And it all happens very quickly. They admitted that none of that happened. They used text prompts and image uploads to simulate all of that and just, creatively edited the video. Plus, if you look at One thing about ChatGPT right now, it is dog slow. Like sometimes it's, like one letter every second. And in this one, this was snappy. Well, they sped it up quite a bit for the demo video.
I've been experimenting with GPT fast locally on RTX A6000s and a single A100, and it's very fast, but it is very, very unstable, like moose on rollerblades unstable.
Well, moving on to some actual robots, we have another bad report on the old Autopilot.
Tesla whistleblower says the Autopilot system is not safe enough to be used on public roads.
I think we have a lot of evidence that supports that.
Yeah.
This guy was in he was in one of those European countries, Norway. Oh, not a good week for Tesla in Norway.
It's cold and snowy there, and they probably have the same sort of like mountainous roads we do. That'd be a scary road to drive on with that.
Although all that weight is probably good for the snow, right?
Maybe.
Anyway, in California, we have the other self-driving car company, which we thought maybe was the way. It's like, hey, Tesla doesn't want to use LiDAR. Maybe the LiDAR is the way. Well, apparently it's not. And it was even worse because they decided to hide their failures in the worst possible situation.
California Commission says crews withheld data about parking on top of a pedestrian.
So remember that woman that got hit by another car and fell under the cruise? Well, according to all those stories we read, crews reported that the cruise car just stopped and parked on top of her. Well, it did park 7 feet from the original location and dragged her into the parking spot. So they left that out of the report. The California Highway Commission, not too enthused about that. And we had several stories about living robots this week. I want to be honest, I didn't really understand too much about this. This is a very complex process. I don't think it's as hype fueled as it should be, or I think it is a lot of hype fuel for something that's not that amazing. But at the same time,
tiny living robots made from human cells surprise scientists. Basically what we did was we chopped up a bunch of proteins, put them in a blender, made this thing, and it did the thing that we wanted it to, which is what we understood the proteins and the RNA and the cellular machinery would do. But it turns out they also did a lot of other things that were really useful. So there's a lot more going on here than we understand, in that these little cells were able to be a lot more functional than we expected.
So they got one single cell organisms that they took out of the throats because apparently they're drowning in throat swabs in the scientific community.
That makes sense.
Well, let's lose those. They were able to get them to grow cilia and move around.
And actually do useful stuff. They could use this for to speed healing because they were just transporting proteins around. It's like, oh, this would be useful for, if you got skin damage from something.
And I think this one is different, right?
Yeah.
But kind of the same thing.
DNA nanobots can exponentially self-replicate. The replicators made out of DNA. Now you feed them the raw materials, and as long as there's raw materials there, they're just going to replicate from now until the end of time. Could be a good data storage mechanism.
And I think these also had some sort of healing factor where they weren't sure why, but if there was damage, they would migrate to that area and start working on it.
Just thinking about the new cancer's really hyped for that.
And the space race is pretty much settled, right? There's only one name in town, and everybody rides on that one.
SpaceX plans key NASA demonstration for next Starship launch. The alternative headline would be that this SpaceX demo is probably the final nail in the coffin for the heavy launch thing that NASA was working on as being way too expensive and complicated.
The big new feature here is propellant exchange in space. So basically mid-air refueling in space. Well, not mid-air, huh? Yeah. Mid-space. Which sounds fun.
That could be a neat thing for interplanetary travel.
And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. Even people who might have their own spaceships.
Amazon taps SpaceX for satellite launch, even though Jeff Bezos is right there.
Uncomfortable.
This is a CNN business headline, which is amazing.
It is funny. This is one of my funnier stories this week.
But also, how about the fact that they are launching their competitors for satellite internet?
They got money.
That'll also look really good in the later antitrust investigation. It's like,
When they try to merge or something.
yeah, one company can't own all of space satellite communication, even though we can't get our crap together enough as a society to just lay fiber optic cables on the ground. How dysfunctional are we? We can't just run a cable.
Let's ruin the night sky so that way we can just avoid running new cable.
Yeah, I mean, just
Well, when we're done polluting the night sky, you know where we can go next? The moon.
Rolls-Royce plans to launch a 120-inch long mini nuclear reactor for moon outpost. Now, some bad news about a nuclear reactor that's only 120 inches long. Not really amazing in terms of radiation shielding.
We'll just put it in one of the tunnels.
Bob, don't go in there.
Actually, you have to. It's broken.
We're going to put it in a lava tube.
Oh, this was also one of my favorite stories this week.
Yeah, this is a fun little whodunit in space, and it turns out no one. It was an honest mistake.
ISS astronauts find a tomato that was lost in space for 8 months.
Everyone blamed it on the one astronaut. He's like, it's not me.
He was in charge of growing the tomatoes, and everybody was like, dude, these tomatoes, like, we've tracked them from birth. We know that you ate one of these. He's like, no, I didn't do it.
It's not scientific.
And then sure enough, they found it.
He said, too, like, apparently they get really desiccated 'cause it's only 17% humidity up there. Do you think they just have nosebleeds all the time?
Imagine how staticky their cats are.
No.
And here's just a little depressing collapse section for you. This is sad.
U.S. students' math scores plunge in global education assessment. I can't wait to break the story that this was actually credit card and banking companies that sabotaged our math education so that people would be more likely to tolerate just criminal interest rates.
I don't consider myself someone who's great at math, but then when I look at like basic financial literacy stuff, I'm like, well, okay, maybe I'm not that bad.
These are people who are definitely not going to be able to understand fractional reserve lending. And
Just the way that we intend.
and inflation. When the government tells you that, hey, inflation is going down, so prices should be coming down too.
Okay, that sounds good.
Oh, it's still a positive number, though. Line goes up as long as that number is positive. And the war, There's
so many wars popping up
the
right now.
newest war, but the hype for that has really fallen off. I feel like Israel war hype has fallen off much faster than Ukraine war hype did.
But there's another war.
Who are we at war with them?
We're not at war with anybody. It's Venezuela trying to take.
Oh, right,
Guyana.
yeah. Oh, I'm sure they're not calling that a war, right? That's just a military action.
Oh yeah, I don't. That's this week was like, okay, I'm gonna look at the news, and then I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not gonna look at that.
Now, if we were to apply all the same standards that we did for those other two countries to that, we should be sending them billions of dollars, right? Are we?
I think we've sent a carrier down there. Last I looked.
Well,
Could be different by now. By the time you guys are watching this.
The thing about all these wars is blowback, which is what the people suffer, not the governments.
Seized Israeli ship Galaxy Leader becomes a tourist hotspot.
You can have a fun day climbing around on this ship and stepping on U.S. and Israeli flags. They ought to put at least like a shaved ice or something up there.
Our mission accomplished flag.
There's nothing to do.
I feel like our user USS Liberty incident will have a comment there.
Well, they were shooting it. They hit some boats with rockets over there in one of those straits. And just some fun social media times. Obviously, people don't know how to behave, and they don't understand the repercussions when they do these things.
Venice gondola capsizes after tourists refuse to sit down and stop taking selfies. What's the worst that could happen? This.
So these were some Chinese tourists. I think maybe they didn't understand what he was saying.
I was like, oh, this is probably American tourists. I feel like kind of a wave of relief that it's not us for once.
But they also pointed out that because of, not just Americans, but I'm sure that we're at the forefront here, is the gondolas, they've had to change some regulations because the tourists are too fat. So they're close to sinking. They can't have as many people on them at once.
Aren't the canals kind of nasty? I don't know a whole lot about it. I could be wrong.
They look pretty nasty.
Yeah, I would think like in a big major city like that.
I wouldn't want to swallow any of that water. And this is just straight up press release, and it's just more of the dystopia of our healthcare system, because more and more the healthcare is being moved out of the hospitals And into the corporate places?
RadNet launches a pilot inside of Walmart of its new Mammogram Now offering. Okay.
You get your 1 hour photo and then you get your mammogram done.
I mean, this seems dystopian, but is this any worse than Mark Cuban bypassing insurance companies to sell cheap drugs because the insurance companies and the hospitals are playing weird games and we can't get our drugs?
Yeah.
Walmart also has the vision center too.
But the problem is, I don't think these people are going to be as well trained.
Depends.
Which would you rather have your medical examination performed by a completely automated robot that's just going to gather a bunch of your stats and details perfectly autonomously every time, or the lowest paid person in healthcare?
It's a tough decision.
I guess if it's similar to how they do the vision center, where like sometimes they'll have a doctor's office attached to it, like kind of like they're leasing that space, that might not be as bad. But
Also, I love how it's Mammogram Now, where it's like, I don't have time to wait.
I got to get my mammogram now.
And one of the jokes is, if you want to be immune to this new wave of carjackings, just drive a manual transmission. Well, apparently that's true for your phone choice as well.
The 9 to 5 Mac headline is thieves return a stolen Android phone after realizing it's not an iPhone.
We don't want this.
We don't want this.
We can't hawk that.
And here is, I mentioned the yellow journalism on CNN. Well, this is not yellow journalism. This is just
That's just propaganda.
unashamed government propaganda. This should be so illegal.
Why inflation can actually be good for everyday Americans and bad for rich people. This is not true. Like, this is like liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah, everyday Americans who don't have a lot of cash are really enjoying the inflation right now.
Can you send this to our clients and employers? Like, okay, yeah, just give us more money so we can buy more stuff.
Just have more money.
Now, the argument here is that as an everyday American, you probably have an insanely long mortgage, which is true that the money you borrowed then is going to be worth a lot less by the time you pay it off. But that doesn't mean that your life is better. You're still going to suffer greatly from, food and fuel and all the other necessities that you need.
All
in
these
life.
things you need to live.
And they are not alone. Clearly, this was a concerted effort because the Atlantic also has something for us.
Inflation is your fault, according to them. If people are so mad about high prices, why do they keep buying so many expensive things?
That's clickbait.
Like milk and eggs. See, also, like, I love how this article doesn't mention anything about the egg price fixing thing, because they were found guilty of that.
It's weird that they say this is my fault because I don't remember personally monetizing debt for the last 2 decades. And some interesting new things going on in the judicial system. We have so much crime and so many people who just can't interact with other humans. They're just gone feral. And how do you deal with that?
Woman who assaulted Chipotle worker sentenced to fast food job for 2 months. She was unhappy and she did not deal with that constructively. So now she gets to live the other side of the aisle, as it were,
And
which
now
is probably a great punishment.
It would be, except it's probably going to make her coworkers and manager absolutely miserable because she thinks she's above that job.
Also, if I was managing a fast food place and you came in and I knew it was like, hey, you're the person who's famous for throwing food, I don't think we can work with you.
Yeah.
It would be amazing if you got to spend 2 months in jail if you managed not to hold a fast food job.
I think if she got fired, she probably would have to. She got 60 days off, 180-day sentence. So I think if she were to fail to get the fast food job, she does the whole 180.
I like it in theory. I just wonder if she'll really take that to heart.
I don't want to eat a burrito bowl that she makes,
That's a good
and
point.
neither do you.
She'd probably spit in all of them.
She's probably just doing a lot of stuff, a lot of bad stuff. And a lot of people were doing bad stuff. Well, actually doing it around the clock. They're robbing these stores at all times. And they don't seem to have a lot of situational awareness when they do it.
Woman arrested for shoplifting during a Shop with a Cop event. So there were 75 police officers in this store?
Now, you might think, though, like maybe she just didn't see any
You
of
can't
them.
not see them, though, because I've been to the store when these things happen.
But it's even worse than that because they arrested her as she was on her way out to her car because they have to wait till you go past the final point of sale. She was parked next to a row of 15 cop cars.
They're everywhere.
So she pulled in, saw
They'll be
15
milling
cop
around out
cars.
front, too.
Yeah.
Like,
And she was like, you know what? I'm still going with this. I don't have time to wait. I got places to be.
I need to steal enough so that it's a felony for the police to be interested, I guess.
And the police themselves are not immune to these waves of crime.
NBC News headline is FBI agent carjacked near Capitol Hill. This is in D.C. An FBI agent was carjacked, which is terrible, but also like,
I mean, I'm not sad that an FBI agent got carjacked, but if they can't protect themselves,
It's bold.
how can we? And get yourself prepared for another hype train that will crash headlong into the mountainside. There is no tunnel. It will be a great disappointment.
Fallout TV series trailer is here, and it's loaded with homages to the games.
I'm not a Fallout girly, so like on a scale of 1 to 10, how hyped were you guys?
It's like post Bethesda. It's not got the old school Fallout charm. There was really something amazing about Fallout 1 and 2 and Fallout Tactics.
They did the scene where she walks up on that. What's the name of that city that had an atomic bomb in the middle?
Oh, yeah, I can't remember.
But there's a scene where she walks into that and it looks exactly like the game.
So the
they
art
definitely-
direction's good though.
They definitely matched up the stuff with the game, with a lot of it.
I
Megaton.
don't have a lot of faith in Amazon Prime after seeing what they did to Rings of Power, but I mean, Rings of Power had some decent art direction.
They had the dog that looked. What was the name of the dog?
Dog meat, right?
Yeah, they had dog meat. I think was in it. So, maybe we'll see.
My husband is also a little pessimistic, but
How can you not be
yeah.
after what they've done so far? And Disney has also destroyed any interest that I have in anything that they will ever make. And they are not doing very well. All of their movies are flopping. So they're saying like, well, let's just go recycle stuff like we always do.
Pixar's Disney Plus pandemic movies are hitting theaters after all. So Soul, Turning Red, and Luca is going to be in cinemas in 2024 because they weren't in cinemas because they came out, during the thing.
Can you tell me what any of those movies are about?
Those are all kids' movies, aren't they?
Soul is about the Day of the Dead. Turning Red is about a young girl who gets her period. And Luca is...
That's a hallucination. That's
I
not
think the middle
accurate.
one's right. And I thought Luca was the one about Day of the Dead. Or so is that in Kanto?
Oh, maybe.
The thing is they have so much sludge that they put out all the time. It's hard to know what's worth actually spending time on.
Well, I can tell you what's not worth spending time on is a bunch of grandpas still dragging their old, tired bones onto the stage to make terrible music.
Kiss say farewell to live touring to become the first band to go virtual and become digital avatars. I want to know who sent the Kiss band to Japan to watch a Hitsune Miku concert, and then after that, the executive comes out and is like, all right, so what we want is Hitsune Miku, but with you guys. It's like, yeah, sign me up.
I'll tell you what happened is they told Gene Simmons, they were like, look, you might be too decrepit to actually go out there, but you could still make money if you sign this contract. And he's like, oh, yes, immediately. And this is a good indicator of how out of touch our leaders are and astonishingly incapable of even making the slightest logical deductions.
Natalie Portman says King Charles asked her at Phantom Menace premiere if she was in the original Star Wars. No, I'm 18. She responded. So
I
engagement
have a brother
challenge.
who's interested.
Based on the release dates of those films, that would make it impossible.
Engagement challenge. Is that an unexpected King Charles response? Is that?
I like to imagine maybe that's like one of those things that you wake up in the middle of the night years later and it's like, oh, because you're so embarrassed. Like you knew at the time as it came out of your mouth that it was stupid, but
See, I think there's a possibility that he doesn't know when Star Wars came out.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, if you're so
Right. It's not part
insulated,
of it. He doesn't
yeah.
care about any of that. His world is totally different than ours. And it's totally different, apparently, when you are a dictator government and you think that you're being supported, but secretly you're not.
Police charge the director of Miss Nicaragua pageant with running a beauty queen coup plot. So apparently Miss Nicaragua's director was going to have some sort of hostile takeover or something, like it was rigged.
Well, what happened was she won and they thought she was pro-government. So they were like, ah, yes, she should have won. But then some footage was released of her at an anti-government rally and they were like, it was fixed.
oh,
That was my favorite thing about Donald Trump is that he would like oh yeah, this person's smart, they're great, I love them, and then they would say something slightly against him. He's like, they're terrible, they should be killed. Like,
0 to 100
like
really
he
fast.
didn't have any problem just flip flopping immediately. When's the last time I have not had sushi? And so like the pandemic has made my sushi consumption hit 0.
I eat sushi almost every week.
Really?
Yeah,
How
I get like grocery store sushi, so it's not fancy.
how hard do you go on the wasabi?
Not very hard. My husband really likes it though.
Well, you better start.
Wasabi, beloved on sushi, linked to really substantial boost in memory, a Japanese study finds.
It's too intense for me. I have to mix it with something else.
Here's the sad reality though. Most for sure grocery store sushi, you're getting spiced up horseradish.
Yeah.
Not wasabi. So probably no gains from that.
I do love sushi though. Probably just slowly raising the amount of mercury in my blood. But
I was thinking about maybe going and get some sushi because I actually was thinking about sushi earlier in the week, which is weird. Maybe it's a simulation. You know the local place that we used to go to all the time? I was like, oh, let me go check out. They're only on Facebook and I can't look at it.
Oh.
So I don't even know what their menu is.
Neat.
And Panera maybe is a place that you'll want to go to get some murder juice.
Panera has a drink called Charged Lemonade, which has been blamed for a second death, this lawsuit alleges. This is on NBC News. So this guy had 3 of them, and then he had a heart attack.
And he was a developmentally challenged young man. So he probably did not know the risk. Now, they point out that this is the same amount of caffeine or similar to their coffee, but it's sold in a much larger cup.
Right.
So you're getting more than one serving at a given time. They say that the safe amount for an adult human is 400 milligrams of caffeine. I think it's milligrams. One large cup of this, 390.
Ooh.
Neat.
So technically, it's under the limit.
Just the one, though, not
Right,
3.
right,
Yeah.
just the one. And if you have some bad fiber service, there's a new thing that the ISPs can blame.
Cicadas are so loud that fiber optic cables can quote unquote hear them, or at least there's vibrations in the fiber optic cable.
They're affecting my downloads. We're going to accelerate and not talk about that one very much because we have 3 more to go and we're past our time.
Oh no.
But these little guys are adorable. However, they're in danger, but you can help.
Mexico wants you to adopt one of these little guys. I can't pronounce that.
Axolotl.
Axolotl, the amphibian that never grows up.
They do actually grow up.
They're cute. They have them in Minecraft too.
Is that one of those in infinite lifetime amphibians? Or just live forever?
It's just that
Like a lobster.
their habitat is not good. So you can't actually adopt one.
That's a beautiful garden.
This one's not as beautiful.
Yeah, you just adopt one in name.
All right,
You sponsor one.
you get a certificate. You can name it.
Oh.
So maybe if you love lizards, look into that.
It's an
And
amphibian.
if you love dogs, maybe plug your ears up on this one.
Man follows the tracks of a tiger that fatally attacked his dog, but then it fatally attacks the man.
A 76-year-old man. What balls of steel on this guy, right? It's funny because they were trying to get a quote from some of the townspeople, and the thing that they said about him was that he was positive and literate.
I hope that's on my tombstone on my obituary. Positive and literate. I also want on my tombstone, I want died doing what she loved no matter what I died doing. Because I think there's nothing that's probably not funny.
What if you died working?
But also it's darkly funny.
And over in Japan, they are serious about their animal rights.
Police arrest Japan taxi driver after running over a pigeon.
So he was at a stoplight, and when it turned green, there was a bunch of pigeons in the road. And normally you would accelerate slowly and they would fly away. But he apparently hated the pigeons. And when went as hard as he could. And he was going so fast and the engine noise was so loud, somebody actually filmed it. They were
Wow.
like, oh, what's going on over there? And he got a fine or something.
It's not very nice.
It's probably less about the pigeon, more about like the reckless way he accelerated.
Pigeons are kind of rats with wings.
Oh, there are a lot of pop-ups on this site.
Yeah, and it's in a different language, so I can't even stop it. And finally, we have a boy who may not have been super good, but at the end of the day, it wasn't his fault. He was not being taken care of properly.
Dog revealed as mystery Mulsey tire puncturer. He was biting the tires. because he wasn't being cared for.
He had gingivitis.
Oh,
It was basically like a child's pacifier. You know,
Yeah.
he wanted to
big piece of rubber.
get pressure on it, so he kept deflating tires. They put up some cameras. That was this poor guy.
Oh, February is Dog Dental Health Month.
Boom! Look at that. Perfect. Right at 3:00.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Get your Christmas shopping done. We love you. Bye.
Where should they do their Christmas shopping, Krista?
Store.level1text.com. Bye.